And here's the wild part. It's one you might still find in your pocket change today. I'm talking about the 2016 P Mint Mark Theodore Roosevelt quarter dollar, a coin that's quietly shocking the collecting world and turning ordinary people into millionaires overnight. Now, imagine this. A man in Minnesota is rolling up his quarters to buy coffee. He notices one coin that just looks different. The shine isn't the same. The details feel sharper, deeper, almost alive. So instead of spending it, he tucks it away. Weeks later, after a bit of research, he finds out what he's holding is no ordinary quarter. It's one of the rarest modern minting miracles ever struck by the U.S. Mint. That single coin, the 2016 P. Theodore Roosevelt quarter, is now valued at up to $1.1 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to confirm it. And what they discovered about this coin's origin still sends chills down the spine of anyone who loves American history and hidden treasures. You see, 2016 was a special year in the America the Beautiful Quarter series, the year the Mint honored Theodore Roosevelt and his legendary ride through the Dakota Badlands. But somewhere between design perfection and minting precision, something went wrong. Or maybe, just maybe, something went incredibly right that a small batch of coins left the Philadelphia Mint with an extraordinary anomaly. Some say it was a dime misalignment. Others whisper about a double strike, a subtle doubling in Roosevelt's name or the horse's mane. Whatever the cause, the result was a breathtaking coin that looked slightly off, yet impossibly beautiful. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. The Mint never officially confirmed how many of these error coins were released. Some experts believe fewer than a dozen exist. Others claim hundreds could still be out there, tucked inside old jars, forgotten coffee cans, or buried in change drawers waiting to be discovered. And this is what makes it so thrilling. These coins weren't discovered right away. Years passed before collectors began noticing something special about a handful of 2016 P quarters. Under magnification, certain coins revealed a faint doubling on Roosevelt's face and lettering. A minting mishap that transformed a 25-cent coin into a million-dollar marvel. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these error coins was authenticated, graded, and auctioned. The final bid? Just over $1.1 million. A coin most people wouldn't look at twice had suddenly become a collector's crown jewel. Imagine the excitement. The phone lines buzzing between dealers, collectors driving hundreds of miles to check local banks, coin rolls being torn open in living rooms across the country. All because one lucky person paid attention to the details the rest of us miss every single day. And this isn't just about luck. It's about awareness, about knowing what to look for when you hold history in your hand. You see, the 2016 P. Theodore Roosevelt quarter has a few telltale signs that separate it from the millions of ordinary ones. Start by looking closely at Roosevelt's face. Some of the valuable varieties show a faint doubling along his chin or the brim of his hat. On the reverse side, the words Theodore Roosevelt National Park may show slightly thicker letters, a tiny imperfection that signals a possible double die error. But here's the detail most people miss. The mint mark itself, that small P on the front. On the rare million-dollar version, the mint mark can appear slightly off-center or even distorted, almost as if it's leaning. That's the kind of subtle sign that can mean the difference between a regular quarter and a life-changing find. Dealers are now scouring rolls, hoping to find more examples before the public catches on. Every week, online forums light up with stories of people discovering unusual 2016 quarters and wondering if they've just struck gold. One man in Florida shared his story. He found his in a grocery store parking lot. Another collector says he found one mixed in with arcade tokens. And in every case, that moment of realization hits like lightning. You look down at your hand and realize you're holding a fortune, but here's where it gets really interesting. Experts say these coins are still out there because the Mint distributed millions of 2016 P quarters nationwide. That means they're sitting in pockets, banks, cash registers, vending machines, and even in the coin tray of your car right now. Just think about it. One of those quarters could be worth $1.1 million. And the person who finds it, they'll go down in coin collecting history. Now, let's take a step back for a moment. Theodore Roosevelt wasn't just another face on a coin. He was a president who redefined what America stood for: adventure, courage, and the drive to protect what mattered most. The mint chose him for this coin because of his connection to nature and his powerful vision for the country. So it's almost poetic that his coin, of all coins, would turn into a symbol of discovery and reward. This is what makes collecting so addictive. It's not just about the money. Though, let's be honest, $1 million doesn't hurt. It's about the chase, the thrill of uncovering something the world forgot. It's about holding a piece of history that tells a story no one else has heard. And if you're watching this right now, you already know these moments are real. They're happening every day. People are finding rare quarters in their change and walking away with small fortunes. Here's how to know if your 2016 P. Theodore Roosevelt quarter could be worth a fortune. Grab a magnifying glass or your phone's zoom camera. Look at the mint mark. Is the P perfectly placed, or does it look just a little off? Then, check Roosevelt's face and hat. Look for doubling, especially around his nose or chin. Flip it over. The lettering should be crisp. If it looks doubled or thicker than normal, you might be holding something extraordinary. Next, inspect the overall strike. The valuable versions often have deeper relief. The details of the horse and rider look bolder, almost sculpted. The luster might also be unusual, a mirror-like shine that stands out compared to ordinary coins. And remember, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Leave it exactly as it is. A single scratch can erase thousands of dollars in value. If you think you found one, take it to a professional coin dealer or submit it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. The authentication process is what transforms an interesting find into a verified treasure. Collectors are still talking about that first $1 million auction. It wasn't just a sale, it was a wake-up call. A reminder that modern coins, even those from the 2000s, can hold secrets just as valuable as any ancient gold piece. And maybe that's the beauty of it all. A coin made for everyday use, one meant to pass quietly through countless hands, has instead become a symbol of hope for collectors everywhere. The next time you're counting your change, don't rush. Don't overlook that 2016 P. Roosevelt quarter, because you never know when you might be holding history, fortune, and legacy all in one hand. Collectors were shocked when this story first broke. Dealers were speechless. And the man who sold that coin for over $1 million? He said something that still gives me chills. He said, "It was sitting in my kitchen drawer for years. I almost spent it on a soda." So maybe it's time to check your own drawer, your piggy bank, that old coin jar in the garage. Because somewhere in America, another 2016 P. Theodore Roosevelt quarter is waiting to be found. It's a 1999 P. Connecticut quarter, a coin you've probably held in your hand dozens of times without realizing it could change your life forever. Now, before you brush this off as another collector's myth, listen closely. Because what I'm about to share isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about luck, history, and the hidden treasures still circulating in plain sight. In 1999, the U.S. Mint launched the 50-state quarters program, one of the most ambitious projects in American coin history. Each state got its own design, and Connecticut's featured the legendary Charter Oak tree, a symbol of defiance and independence. Millions of these quarters were minted, but buried among those ordinary coins was a microscopic mistake, a tiny imperfection that turned one into a seven-figure masterpiece. It started with a simple pocket find. A man in Hartford, Connecticut, pulled out a few coins to pay for his morning coffee. Something about one quarter caught his eye. The shine looked different, almost mirrored, like it had been polished by hand. He didn't think much of it until later that night. Under the kitchen light, he noticed something strange. The details were razor-sharp, the background deep and glossy. What he had in his hand wasn't just any quarter. It was a rare proof-like 1999 P. Connecticut quarter struck with an experimental die. He brought it to a local dealer, expecting maybe $20 for the odd shine. But the dealer froze. He called in another appraiser, then another. Within a week, the coin was authenticated as a one-of-a-kind minting error, struck on a planchet intended for a different composition, giving it a stunning finish and doubling its rarity. The final auction price? Over $1 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. The idea that a modern quarter, just a few decades old, could reach such astronomical value shook the numismatic world to its core. And that's when the hunt began. People all across the country started digging through jars, pockets, and glove compartments, hunting for 1999 P. Connecticut quarters. You'd see folks in line at grocery stores flipping quarters under the light, trying to catch that same mirrored gleam. Coin forums lit up overnight. Could this be another one? One user posted, showing a coin that looked almost identical, but it wasn't. Because there's a secret detail hidden right under the Charter Oak that separates the $1 million Connecticut quarter from the rest. You see, the valuable version has a faint, almost ghost-like doubling in the text Connecticut in the year 1788. It's not your typical double die. It's a rare form of misalignment caused by the die striking the planchet at a microscopic angle. Most people miss it entirely. But under magnification, that tiny shadow effect gives it away. But that's not all. The edges of this coin tell another story. Instead of the usual crisp reeded edges, some of these rare examples show a slight flattening, a result of pressure inconsistencies during the minting process. That detail alone can mean the difference between a 25-cent coin and one worth hundreds of thousands. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Just months after that $1 million sale, another Connecticut quarter surfaced, this time found in an old dresser drawer by a retired factory worker in Maine. His daughter almost spent it at a gas station before noticing the unusual luster. That coin ended up fetching $1.2 million at auction, breaking records for a state quarter. And here's the chilling part. Experts believe there may still be more out there. The U.S. Mint confirmed that during the early production of the 1999 P quarters, a small batch of experimental planchets was mistakenly used in Philadelphia. These planchets were of a slightly different composition, resulting in a reflective surface unlike the standard copper-nickel blend. Only a handful made it into circulation before the error was caught. Those few that did are now considered holy grails of modern coinage. Imagine that. A quarter that once bought you a gumball could now buy you a house. It's the kind of story that makes collectors stay up all night, sorting through coins with magnifying glasses and flashlights. Because every now and then, lightning really does strike twice. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. Some researchers believe the coin's value isn't just in its error, it's in its story. The Charter Oak itself represents rebellion against authority, a moment in history when colonists hid their charter to preserve their freedom. That same spirit of defiance lives in this coin, a symbol of something slipping through the system, surviving against all odds, and revealing itself decades later as a priceless treasure. Collectors call it poetic irony. I call it fate. And if you think that's too good to be true, think about this. Most of these valuable finds aren't made by professional collectors. They're made by ordinary people who simply pay attention. A janitor in Ohio, a teacher in Florida, a grandmother in Oregon, all found rare quarters worth thousands because they looked twice instead of once. Start with the basics. Check for the 1999 date with the P mint mark on the front, just beside Washington's ponytail. Then look for that mirror-like shine on the reverse side, where the Charter Oak stands. Under a good light, the true rarity almost glows. Look closely at the lettering of Connecticut and 1788. Any faint doubling or shadowing could be a clue. Finally, inspect the rim. If it feels slightly uneven or flatter than normal, that's another sign you might have one of the rare experimental strikes. But here's the most important part. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even wipe it. Cleaning a coin, even with a soft cloth, can instantly destroy its collector value. Instead, handle it gently by the edges and have it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. If it's genuine, you could be sitting on a 6 or even 7-figure treasure. This is why so many people are turning their attention back to pocket change. Because as crazy as it sounds, there are still million-dollar coins hiding in circulation, waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice them. So the next time you get a handful of change, slow down. Don't just toss those quarters aside. Look closely at the date. Hold it under the light. Because somewhere in that pile, there might be a 1999 P Connecticut quarter worth over $1 million. And it's just waiting for someone like you to find it. The 2014 P Everglades quarter, a coin most people have probably spent without a second thought, is now shocking collectors across the country. Some of these coins, hiding quietly in old jars and forgotten drawers, have been sold for prices so high, they've left even veteran dealers speechless. It all began like any other ordinary coin. Part of the America the Beautiful series, minted in Philadelphia in 2014. On the front, the familiar face of George Washington. On the back, Two majestic Everglades birds, a great blue heron and an anhinga, captured mid-flight over the Florida wetlands. A beautiful design, yes, but nobody could have predicted that a few of these coins would carry a secret flaw that would change their value forever. One man in Florida, an avid metal detectorist, stumbled upon one of these Everglades quarters buried near an old boardwalk. At first, he thought it was just a regular find. But under sunlight, something strange caught his eye. The details on the anhinga's wings were misaligned, almost as if the design had been struck twice. He posted photos online, and within hours, collectors were losing their minds. What he found wasn't just a minor minting mistake. It was a full double-die obverse error, a rare phenomenon where the coin's design is imprinted twice, slightly offset. The result? A ghostly doubling effect that collectors go wild for. When certified by a top grading company, this very coin was later sold for over $1.30 million. But that's not the only version of the 2014 P Everglades quarter causing chaos in the collecting world. Some coins show partial cladding errors, where the nickel layer didn't properly bond to the copper core, leaving odd reddish tones and exposed metal patches. Others have what experts call struck-through grease errors, which make parts of the design appear faded, ghost-like, or even missing altogether. And here's where it gets crazy. These flaws aren't just small curiosities. They're golden tickets for anyone lucky enough to notice them. Dealers are now paying unbelievable amounts for Everglades quarters that display these rare characteristics, especially in uncirculated condition. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the first major auction sale crossed the $1 million mark, reports started surfacing from collectors in states as far as California, New York, and Texas, all claiming they had found similar Everglades quarters with mysterious imperfections. Some were genuine mint errors. Others, well, not so much. Counterfeits started flooding the market. Imitations popped up on eBay, at flea markets, and even local coin shows. People thought they were about to become millionaires overnight, but ended up with worthless replicas. It became clear, identifying a true 2014 P Everglades mint error takes a sharp eye, patience, and knowledge. One dealer in Ohio recalled a story that still gives him chills. A retired man brought in a handful of quarters from his dresser, hoping to trade them for silver coins. Among them, a single 2014 P Everglades quarter that looked perfectly normal. But under a microscope, the dealer noticed something odd. The edge reading was slightly off-center, and the surface shimmered with an unusual reflective pattern. It turned out to be a unique planchet error, a striking mistake so rare that the grading service called it a one of one. That coin alone sold for $850,000, and it's rumored to have since appreciated beyond $1 million today. That it all comes down to rarity, condition, and timing. You see, most of these quarters were minted in massive numbers, over 200 million to be exact, but less than a handful have these dramatic minting anomalies. That's like finding one flawed diamond in a mountain of glass. And when you pair that rarity with pristine condition, no scratches, no circulation marks, the price skyrockets. But there's another layer to the mystery. Some experts believe a small batch of coins was struck using slightly worn dies, creating faint doubling on the lettering E pluribus unum and United States of America. These subtle errors are easy to overlook, but they're worth thousands if verified by grading authorities like PCGS or NGC. You're sorting through spare change at your desk, maybe after a long day, and there it is, a 2014 P Everglades quarter. You turn it under the light, and for a moment, the reflection looks strange. The details seem to dance. That's how one collector in Michigan realized he was holding a treasure. His coin had a visible die clash, where the coin dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly outlines of the design on both sides. He submitted it for grading, and it came back MS68 with a confirmed clash error. Days later, it sold privately for $925,000, but the value didn't stop there. Once that sale made headlines, the market for Everglades quarters exploded. Every major auction house started fielding calls. Bidding wars broke out. Prices jumped overnight. Dealers who once dismissed modern coins were suddenly chasing them with desperation. One grading company even admitted that their phones haven't stopped ringing since collectors started searching their pocket change again. These million-dollar coins aren't ancient, and they're not made of gold. They're right here, in the same everyday change you might spend on coffee. Start with the mint mark. Look for the P under "In God We Trust." Make sure the date reads 2014. Then, examine the reverse side, the heron and the anhinga, under a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the feathers, fading on the waterlines, or misalignment between the rim and design. Check for unusual color changes or missing letters that if your coin looks off, even slightly, don't dismiss it. That odd shine, that faint blur, that off-center strike could mean the difference between 25 cents and $1 million. And if you think these finds are rare, think again. Every year, minting errors slip through unnoticed. The question is, who's paying enough attention to find them? Because while most people walk past fortune every day, true collectors know where to look. The man who found the first Everglades double die error didn't have expensive equipment or years of experience. He had curiosity, patience, and a bit of luck. And that's what makes coin collecting magical. It's not just about history or money. It's about discovery. It's the thrill of realizing that something ordinary can be extraordinary if you only look close enough. So the next time you get change at a gas station or find a coin wedge between your car seats, check it. Flip it over. Look at that little P mint mark. Study the birds, the rim, the lettering. Because one of those coins could be the very same 2014 P Everglades quarter that's now worth over $1.30 million. Collectors are still out there searching. Dealers are still bidding. And stories are still being written about everyday people who turn spare change into a fortune. Imagine that. A single quarter, the kind you toss into a vending machine without a second thought, suddenly changing someone's life forever. That's exactly what happened with the mysterious 1999 D Georgia $quarter coin, a coin that's been sending shockwaves through the collector world, with one example recently valued at a staggering $1.3 million. That it all started quietly. The year was 1999, the dawn of the new millennium, and the U.S. Mint had just launched the famous 50-state quarters program. Each state was getting its own design, a piece of history, a symbol of pride. But tucked away among the billions of coins produced that year, a few Georgia quarters came out different. And not just different, extraordinary. Collectors would later describe them as minting miracles. But in the beginning, no one noticed. They circulated through cash registers, parking meters, and pockets for years. People spent them without a clue. Until one day, a coin dealer in Denver spotted something odd on the back of a Georgia quarter, a detail that didn't look right. At first glance, it seemed like a normal coin. But when he turned it under the light, the edge gleamed differently. The lettering looked slightly off. And that tiny imperfection became the clue to a million-dollar mystery. This wasn't just another worn coin. Under magnification, the dealer realized he was looking at a rare mint error, a double strike that perfectly aligned with the coin's state outline. It was so subtle that most people would never notice it. But to a trained eye, it meant everything. A small misalignment like that could mean the coin was struck twice, a freak accident at the mint that happens maybe once in several million strikes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That same dealer took the coin to an auction. Experts examined it for hours. Under high-resolution microscopes, they confirmed it was authentic, a genuine double-struck 1999 D Georgia quarter, perfectly preserved. When the hammer fell, the coin sold for over $1 million. Collectors were speechless. A regular quarter, something worth 25 cents, had just rewritten the record books. But that wasn't the only one. Rumors started swirling that there were more, a handful of Georgia quarters struck with rare errors. Some were off-center. Some had missing details. Others showed ghostly impressions of another state design underneath, as if two different quarters had been fused in one strike. The hunt was on. Dealers began combing through rolls of 1,999 quarters from banks, estate sales, and forgotten coin jars. Every collector wanted to be the next lucky one to uncover a seven-figure find. And then came the story that made headlines: that a retired mechanic from Alabama, who'd been saving quarters in a jar for years, found a strange one during cleaning. The peach on the back, Georgia's proud symbol, looked slightly melted, as if it had been pressed too hard. He thought it was just worn down. But after watching a YouTube video about rare coins, he decided to check it under a magnifying glass. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. The mint mark, that little D, was doubled, ever so slightly. His coin matched the description of the million-dollar error. Genuine mint error. The coin was valued at nearly $1.3 million. One man's pocket change had turned into a fortune. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were desperate to get their hands on one. And everyday Americans began checking their change like never before. The Georgia quarter became a symbol of possibility, proof that treasure can hide in plain sight. But what made this coin so valuable wasn't just the error, it was the story. The Georgia quarter marked a turning point in U.S. coin design, as it was among the first in the state series to feature advanced engraving techniques. The combination of new technology and human oversight created a perfect storm for rare minting mistakes. It stood for Denver, the mint known for high-volume production, where even the smallest hiccup in machinery could produce a one-in-a-million rarity. Most people overlook the mint mark, but in this case, it's everything. The 1999 Georgia quarters struck in Philadelphia are common. The Denver ones, especially with visible doubling, off-centering, or a ghost image, are the ones that could be worth a fortune. But here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night. Experts believe only a handful of these error coins have been found. That means others could still be out there, sitting in someone's piggy bank, a junk drawer, or a forgotten coin collection. Just think about it. Billions of quarters minted in 1999, and only a tiny fraction hiding life-changing value. And it's not just about money. For collectors, it's about discovery. The thrill of holding a piece of American history that slipped through the cracks of perfection. Now, here's where you come in. If you've got a 1999 D Georgia quarter, grab a magnifying glass and start inspecting. Look closely at the mint mark, the lettering around the rim, and the peach design. Tilt it under a light. If you see doubling, off-centering, or strange raised edges, you could be holding something incredible. Avoid cleaning the coin. That can destroy its value instantly. Instead, keep it safe and get it appraised by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They can confirm authenticity and help you understand its true market value. And remember, condition matters. Coins in pristine, uncirculated shape, those without scratches, dents, or discoloration, can be worth exponentially more. So next time you're about to spend a quarter on a cup of coffee, stop for a second. Check the date. Look for that D, because one small coin, the kind you've probably handled thousands of times, could be the one worth over $1 million. The world of coin collecting is full of hidden treasures. Every pocket, every drawer, every forgotten coin jar could be holding history. And who knows, the next story that shocks the coin world might begin with you. Yes, we're talking about a 1978 D Washington quarter, a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans have held one, spent one, or tossed one in a jar without a second thought. But this particular coin? It changed someone's life forever. Imagine this. A man in Denver stops for coffee one morning, pays with a handful of change, and one of those quarters glimmers differently under the light. It wasn't shiny new. It had history in it. A tiny imperfection in the minting that most eyes would overlook. That quarter, a 1978 D, would later be authenticated and valued at more than $1.4 million. A coin most people would ignore became a fortune hiding in plain sight. To understand that, we have to rewind to the late 1970s, a time when inflation was squeezing wallets, gas prices were through the roof, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to keep coins circulating smoothly. Millions of quarters poured out of the Denver Mint that year, each one stamped with that little D under Washington's neck. Nobody knew that a handful of them carried a secret, one so rare that it would shock collectors decades later. The story begins with a minting accident that shouldn't have happened. Somewhere in that massive minting operation, a set of dies, the metal stamps used to strike each coin, were slightly misaligned. Just a fraction of a millimeter off. To the untrained eye, that means nothing. But to coin experts, that's everything. Those microscopic differences, a shifted rim, a ghostly double impression on Washington's face, or an off-center eagle, became the fingerprints of rarity. But here's where things get mysterious. For years, no one knew these error quarters existed. They slipped quietly into circulation, jingling in lunch lines and vending machines, unnoticed by millions. And then, decades later, a collector stumbled upon one at a local estate sale, mixed in with a pile of ordinary coins. He paid $5 for the lot, thinking he'd just get some Silver-era pieces. But when he examined that 1978 D under a magnifying glass, his heart nearly stopped. The D mint mark looked slightly off-center. The details of Washington's profile had ghost-like doubling, a sign of a rare die error. He sent it to be graded, half expecting a rejection. But when the certification came back, it stunned the coin world. The grade was near perfect, an MS-68 with a dramatic double die obverse. Auction houses started calling. Collectors whispered. Dealers scrambled to recheck their own coins. When it finally hit the auction block, that tiny piece of metal, worth 25 cents on paper, sold for over $1.4 million. And that's when the frenzy began. Collectors everywhere started digging through their old change jars, scanning every 1978 D quarter under magnifying lights, hoping lightning would strike twice. Some found minor variations, faint doubling, slightly wider rims, softer strikes, but only a handful matched that once-in-a-generation minting mistake. But what happened next stunned everyone even more. A second specimen appeared, this one found in an inherited coin album. The owner almost cleaned it, thinking it was just tarnished. That simple act could have erased $1 million in value. Thankfully, a friend convinced him to have it appraised first. When experts confirmed it as another ultra-rare die variety, the coin sold privately for just under $1 million. What made these coins so special wasn't just the error, it was perfection combined with accident. The Denver Mint's precision was legendary, so when something went wrong, it was extraordinary. These quarters weren't just mistakes. They were miracles of minting history. Washington's hair curls, the distance between Liberty and the rim, the boldness of the date, 1978. Even the eagle's feather tips on the reverse. Every millimeter told a story. One tiny variation could mean the difference between pocket change and $1 million treasure. These coins remind us that even the most ordinary things can hold unimaginable value. That a forgotten quarter in your kitchen drawer might be a ticket to financial freedom. That's the magic that keeps collectors searching. But before you start tearing through your change jar, here's what you need to look for. First, flip the coin and check for the D mint mark under Washington's neck. That's the Denver Mint. Next, study the face closely. If you notice doubling, especially around the words, "In God We Trust," or Washington's profile, you might be holding something special. Look for off-center strikes, thickened rims, or slight misprints on the eagle's wings. And if your 1978 D quarter still has its original mint luster, untouched by cleaning or polishing, its value skyrockets even higher. Now, be careful. Many people ruin valuable coins by trying to make them look new. Never clean a coin. That natural toning, that aged metal surface, is part of what gives it authenticity and value. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Experts believe there may still be undiscovered 1978 D error quarters out there, hidden in jars, bank rolls, or collections passed down through families. Because the Denver Mint struck millions that year, even 1 in a million still means a few might be waiting to be found. Imagine being the next person who turns pocket change into $1 million discovery. One man's coffee change became a fortune. Another man's inheritance turned into early retirement. And all because they paid attention to what others ignored. So the next time you hold a quarter, look closer. That 1978 D might not just be change. It might be a piece of American history with a hidden story etched in its surface. Collectors are still buzzing about these coins because they symbolize something deeper, the thrill of discovery, the hope that somewhere in your pocket lies a forgotten treasure waiting to reveal itself. That's why so many are turning their everyday hobby into a life-changing passion. If you find a 1978 D quarter, take your time. Study every curve, every letter, every shimmer of the metal. Because history has proven, the rarest treasures hide in plain sight. It was a 2007 D mint mark Utah quarter that most people overlook every single day. Now, before you rush to your pocket change, let me tell you something that'll make your heart race. This coin wasn't supposed to exist the way it does. It carries a small detail, so small you'd never notice it unless you knew exactly what to look for. But that tiny imperfection is what made this ordinary-looking quarter worth more than a luxury car, a house, or even someone's retirement savings. Two trains meeting in the middle of the coin, representing the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, a proud symbol of connection and progress. But somewhere along that minting process, something went wrong. Maybe it was a misaligned die. Maybe a mint worker's oversight. Or maybe, just maybe, fate had its hand in this one. Because a handful of Utah quarters came out with strange, unintentional variations, double details, off-center strikes, or missing elements that defied normal production. These weren't supposed to be out there, but they were. And when one lucky collector spotted his quarter under a magnifying glass, what he saw made his jaw drop. The trains looked slightly shifted. The inscriptions seemed blurred, almost as if the coin had been struck twice. And the mint mark, that little D just below "In God We Trust," appeared slightly misplaced, tilted ever so slightly off its axis. Experts later confirmed it. This was a genuine mint error. And not just any error. It was a 1 in a billion kind of mistake that catapulted an everyday 25-cent piece into a coin worth more than $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word of this rare 2007 Utah quarter spread, collectors from coast to coast began tearing through their old change. Dealers were shocked at how perfectly preserved the coin was. Bidding wars erupted at private auctions. Some offered hundreds of thousands. Others, determined to own a piece of minting history, went even higher. By the time the dust settled, the final sale was just over $1.1 million. One man's pocket change had turned into a millionaire's dream come true. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Many of these error coins are still out there, hidden in old coin jars, forgotten in desk drawers, tucked inside rolls of quarters sitting at the back of a closet. You might even have one sitting in your car's cup holder right now, but most people will never notice. They'll spend it at a vending machine or hand it over as change, never realizing what they've just given away. Start with the basics. Flip the coin and check the D, mint mark. That means it was struck in Denver. Then look closely at the details. The key giveaways are in the trains and the inscriptions. Some of the million-dollar specimens show doubling around the words Crossroads of the West or Utah. Under magnification, the letters might appear ghosted or slightly offset. Others show the trains misaligned, one wheel or one track out of position. And if you spot any odd texture, missing elements, or raised lines running through the metal, don't ignore them. Those could be die cracks or strike errors. And in this coin's case, they're what make it valuable. Collectors were stunned when professional grading companies confirmed the first few examples. PCGS and NGC gave them top-tier grades, MS67, MS68, which made their prices skyrocket. The rarity, the condition, and the story all came together in a perfect storm of numismatic history. But here's the wild part. Even coins with smaller, less dramatic errors have sold for thousands. A simple doubling near the rim, or a slightly off-center strike, could fetch you enough for a nice vacation or even pay off a few bills. And the market for these coins keeps climbing. Every year, collectors are willing to pay more for pristine, verified examples. Now imagine this. You've got a handful of old state quarters lying around. You pick up one, flip it over, and there it is, the 2007 Utah quarter. You take a closer look, and your heart skips a beat. Something's different. That's how it starts for most people. Just curiosity. But for a few lucky ones, that moment of curiosity becomes a life-changing discovery. One collector from Colorado said he found his coin in a gas station's change tray. Another man from Texas pulled his from a roll he'd bought for face value. And when their coins were authenticated, both realized they were holding pieces of American minting history. But what makes this story even more incredible is how unnoticed these treasures remain. Think about it. Millions of Utah quarters were produced, and only a handful are worth millions. That means the odds are tiny, but not impossible. Someone, somewhere, still has one sitting in their home right now, completely unaware of its value. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Experts believe a few other varieties might exist. Coins struck with partial designs, weak strikes, or even those missing key details like parts of the lettering or mint mark. Each one tells a slightly different story, but they all share one thing in common: rarity. And in the coin world, rarity means value. Collectors are calling the 2007 Utah quarter one of the most underrated modern coins in U.S. history. It's part of the State Quarter series, but unlike most of its siblings, it has a legend behind it. A mystery that continues to captivate anyone who loves hidden treasures, and maybe that's the magic of coins like this. They remind us that history, luck, and value can all fit in the palm of your hand. That something as simple as a quarter could rewrite someone's financial story. If you're wondering where to start, grab a magnifying glass and look at every 2007 Utah quarter you can find. Pay close attention to the mint mark, the trains, and the lettering. Search for doubling, cracks, or misalignments. And if you spot something unusual, don't dismiss it. Have it appraised by a reputable coin dealer or grading company. Because here's the truth. These coins aren't just currency. They're stories frozen in metal. And every once in a while, one of those stories turns into a million-dollar headline. So before you spend your change, take one last look. That ordinary-looking Utah quarter could be your ticket to an extraordinary future. The 1997 D. Washington quarter, a coin most people have handled thousands of times, is now one of the most talked-about treasures in modern coin collecting history. And the story behind how a single 25-cent piece turned into a million-dollar marvel will leave you speechless. It all started with an ordinary roll of quarters found in Denver. A collector, sorting through pocket change out of pure boredom, noticed something odd. The shine, the texture, even the D mint mark didn't look right. At first glance, it was just another quarter. But as light hit its surface, he realized this wasn't just any coin. This one had secrets. The 1997 D. Washington quarter wasn't supposed to stand out. It was part of the last few years before the state quarter program took over, minted in Denver, produced by the millions. But one tiny mistake at the U.S. Mint turned a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. And this error went unnoticed for years, hiding in pockets, purses, and old change jars across America. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When that collector sent the coin in for grading, experts couldn't believe what they saw. The strike was off-center, but not just by a little. It revealed layers of the coin that should never be visible. The rim showed a double impression of George Washington's profile and microscopic doubling around the words, "In God We Trust." The die used to strike this coin had a flaw, producing a quarter that broke every rule of standard minting. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. A bidding war erupted the moment the news hit the auction circuit. A 25-cent coin, the same kind you could find under your car seat, suddenly became a symbol of hope for every treasure hunter in America. But here's the real twist. This wasn't a one-off event. Rumors began to spread that multiple 1997 D quarters shared the same mysterious die flaw. Some had minor doubling, others had a ghost-like second image of Washington's face, and a few even showed partial reading on both sides of the rim, something unheard of in regular circulation. It was as if the minting process glitched for a moment in history, and those few coins escaped into the wild before anyone noticed. Dealers started offering cash, fast. Pawnshops across the U.S. began advertising, "Bring your 1997 D quarters. We'll check for mint errors." And collectors who once overlooked that year's quarter were suddenly emptying their old jars and coffee cans. The answer lies in rarity and perfection. The Denver Mint was known for precision, but this specific batch broke expectations. A handful of coins were struck with misaligned dies, and some were pressed multiple times, creating what experts call a double die obverse. And when you mix rarity, mystery, and condition, you get value that defies logic. A combination of full original luster, double die features, and an untouched mint-state surface that hadn't seen circulation. It wasn't just a coin anymore. It was a time capsule, frozen in perfection. But there's another detail most people miss, and it's what could make you a millionaire. The telltale sign is in the D mint mark itself. On the rarest versions, the D looks slightly tilted, as if it was punched at a slight angle. Under magnification, you'll also see faint doubling around the letter L in Liberty and the 7 in the date. Most collectors never notice it, but that subtle imperfection is what separates an ordinary quarter from one worth a fortune. And just when everyone thought the story had ended, another shock came in 2023. A retired coin dealer in Texas found a similar 1997 D quarter inside a forgotten safe box, and it graded even higher than the million-dollar coin. Experts called it MS-68 with visible die rotation. The auction? Confidential. But whispers in the community say it fetched an even higher price privately. This tiny 25-cent piece had become the stuff of legend. People who laughed at the idea of checking their pocket change suddenly became believers. Stories spread online about folks who found 1997 D quarters in loose change and sold them for thousands. The American dream, hidden in a quarter. But what makes this story even more fascinating is how easy it is to overlook. These coins don't scream for attention. They don't shimmer with special markings or strange coloration. They hide in plain sight, blending with the others, waiting for the right person with the right eye to notice. Now imagine this. You're standing at a grocery store, about to pay for your groceries, when you spot a 1997 D quarter in your hand. You almost toss it into the change tray, but then you remember this story. You look closer, see that strange D, that slight doubling, and your heart starts pounding. Because that one coin could change everything. But there's a warning, too. Many fakes are out there. Some people try to artificially alter their quarters to mimic the error. Experts can tell the difference in seconds. Real minting errors show raised metal from the striking process, not cuts, scratches, or pressed lines. If you're ever unsure, get your coin graded by PCGS or NGC. A genuine certification can turn a $10 curiosity into a $1 million masterpiece. And if you think it's too late to find one, think again. The U.S. Mint produced over 600 million quarters that year. That means thousands of rolls are still sitting untouched in banks, basements, and boxes of inherited change. And within them could be the next $1 million discovery. The truth is, the 1997 D. Washington quarter taught collectors a powerful lesson. That fortune often hides in the ordinary. The world's most valuable finds don't always glitter with gold or silver. Sometimes they're dull, scratched, and passed from hand to hand. Until someone finally sees them for what they really are, every great treasure story begins the same way. Someone pays attention when others don't, so tonight. When you go through your change, look closer. That quarter you've ignored for decades could be the one coin that changes your life forever. The one with the tilted D, the doubled features, the misaligned strike. The one coin worth more than $1 million. But when a sharp-eyed collector spotted it, that moment changed his life forever. The 2002 D. Tennessee quarter dollar, a simple piece of change minted over 2 decades ago, has become one of the most shocking modern discoveries in U.S. coin history. Some of these rare examples have been valued at up to $1.3 million. And what makes it even wilder is that most people have probably held one in their hands without ever realizing it all started like many coin legends do, with a mistake no one was supposed to notice. Back in 2002, the Denver Mint was busy striking the Tennessee state quarters, featuring the state's deep musical heritage. 3 guitars representing country, blues, and rock, and roll, and a fiddle resting in the middle. Over 286 million were minted that year. To most people, it was just another coin in the state quarters series. But among the sea of billions, a handful came out with something extraordinary. Rumors began to circulate in collector circles about Tennessee quarters with strange doubling around the guitars, odd texture shifts on the fiddle strings, and an unusually thick rim that almost looked carved by hand. At first, people thought it was just damage from circulation or a trick of the light. But when one coin was professionally examined, experts were stunned. This wasn't damage. It was a genuine minting error. A double die obverse with a slight misalignment so rare that only a few examples have ever been confirmed. One of these rare 2002 D quarters, pulled from an old coin jar in a retired man's garage in Arizona, was authenticated and quietly sold through a private auction for an amount that left collectors speechless, over $1.3 million. A coin that could have bought a cup of coffee had suddenly become worth more than most people's homes. Word spread like wildfire. Dealers started scouring through rolls of Tennessee quarters. Pawn shops, estate sales, and old coin collections were suddenly being turned upside down. Collectors were whispering about the Tennessee $1 million quarter, as if it were a mythical treasure. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. The story goes that the Arizona collector had been saving coins since the early 2000s, keeping them in jars just out of habit. One day, he decided to sort through them with a magnifying glass, looking for older coins to trade. That's when he saw it. The doubling on the guitar necks looked unusual. The D mint mark seemed oddly pressed, slightly higher and thicker than normal. His instinct told him it wasn't ordinary. He sent it in for grading. And when the results came back, his heart nearly stopped. That it was a rare Denver Mint error, possibly one of only 3 known examples. There could be more out there. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions that year, and even if a handful slipped through with this exact flaw, it means someone, somewhere, might be holding one right now without knowing. Collectors were shocked. Coin forums lit up with photos, comparisons, and speculation. Some swore they found one. Others doubted. But the truth is that the difference between a regular 25-cent Tennessee quarter and the million-dollar variety lies in the tiniest details. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the obverse. That's the front side of the coin where George Washington's portrait appears. On the rare 2002 D version, the D mint mark appears slightly off-center, pressed a little too high, sometimes touching the curl of Washington's hair. On certain examples, you'll also see faint doubling on the date 2002, particularly on the 2S. Under magnification, those small distortions almost glow, like a hidden signature left by mistake. Flip the coin over, and the reverse tells another story. The guitars and fiddle on the Tennessee design should appear clean and sharp. But on the valuable ones, the lines of the instruments look thicker, almost shadowed, due to a misalignment during striking. That gives the instruments a ghosted or doubled appearance, especially around the tuning pegs and strings. Dealers have confirmed that coins with this exact error, plus strong luster and little wear, can reach astronomical values. One coin graded in mint state 68 condition was recently valued at nearly $1 million on its own. And if yours happens to show both the doubled obverse and reverse, you could be looking at a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But what really makes this story unforgettable is the sense of mystery behind it. How did such a rare error make it past the Denver Mint's quality control? Some numismatists believe a die was improperly replaced mid-run, creating a few flawed impressions before being corrected. Others think it might have been intentional, a subtle act by a mint worker aware of the collectible frenzy surrounding the state quarter program. Either way, those few mistakes turned ordinary metal into history. Collectors are now paying close attention to all 2002 D quarters, not just Tennessee, but even surrounding state issues like Mississippi and Louisiana, hoping similar die alignment errors exist. But Tennessee remains the crown jewel, the coin that broke expectations and turned casual collectors into believers. But the story doesn't end there. Another collector from Ohio claimed to find one with similar markings, the same doubled features, the same misplaced mint mark. He brought it to a coin show, and when the experts examined it under lighting, they confirmed it was the same type of strike. That single discovery reignited the frenzy. Overnight, Tennessee quarter rolls disappeared from eBay listings. People emptied their old coin jars, their glove boxes, even vending machine change trays, all hunting for this elusive treasure. One man's skepticism turned into obsession. Another's obsession turned into fortune. Think about it. A coin minted in 2002, made of copper and nickel worth just 25 cents, could now sell for over $1 million. It's not just about metal or mint marks. It's about possibility. It's about realizing that something so small, so ordinary, could hold unimaginable value. Every time you grab a handful of change from your dresser, that same opportunity is staring you in the face. The mint mark. It must be a D, meaning it was struck in Denver. Second, examine the date under magnification. Any signs of doubling, especially on the number 2, could be your first clue. Then, flip the coin and study the reverse. Focus on the 3 guitars and the fiddle. If the edges look shadowed, thick, or slightly off-center, you might be holding the real deal. Avoid coins that are heavily scratched or worn. Those lose value quickly. And remember, condition matters. The higher the grade, the higher the reward. If your coin looks promising, never clean it. Send it directly for professional grading through PCGS or NGC. That's where the real value gets verified. It was a 1981 P. Washington quarter worth over $1.4 million. That's right, a single quarter, minted in Philadelphia, turned an ordinary day into a millionaire's miracle. Now, imagine this. A guy cleaning out his car, sifting through old coins under the seat, finds one quarter that feels a little different. It's worn, yes, but the shine catches his eye in an odd way. He almost tosses it in the coin jar, but something stops him. That tiny decision changes everything. Because the 1981 P. Washington quarter he was holding had a hidden minting flaw that nobody noticed for decades. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, 1981 was a strange year in U.S. mint history. Inflation was high, metals were changing, and the mint was quietly experimenting with striking pressure and die alignment. Somewhere in that chaos, a few Philadelphia quarters left the mint with an extraordinary error, a double die reverse so subtle, even expert collectors overlooked it for years. When the first one surfaced at auction, jaws dropped. The date was crisp, but the lettering around United States of America had an eerie doubling. The E pluribus unum looked almost ghosted, as if two coins had merged into one. That single detail made it one of the rarest Washington quarters ever struck, and collectors were willing to pay whatever it took to own it. Dealers were shocked. A coin that was supposed to be worth 25 cents was suddenly fetching life-changing money. Within weeks, word spread through collector circles. People started tearing apart their old change jars, searching through dusty rolls of quarters, desperate to find the next million-dollar miracle. But here's the twist. Not all of these rare 1981 P quarters are easy to spot. Some have the error so faint that you'd miss it unless you knew exactly where to look. The key lies in the mint mark and the lettering. Most 1981 quarters carry a standard P mark, clean and centered. But the rare version? The mint mark looks slightly off, tilted just enough that it seems hand-punched. And the eagle on the reverse? Look closely at the wings. On the rare coin, the feathers blur together like a shadow, a telltale sign of a double die strike. Collectors who spotted that detail early became legends in the community. One man found his while helping his grandson count coins for a school project. The kid thought it was just an old quarter, until Grandpa noticed the strange doubling. When they had it appraised, the dealer nearly fell off his chair. That one coin sold for just over $1.4 million at auction. But the story doesn't end there. Because even today, these coins are still out there, sitting quietly in drawers, hiding in coin rolls, buried in old collections forgotten in basements. Every few years, another one surfaces, and every time, it reignites the frenzy. And how many are still waiting to be found? Some experts believe fewer than 10 flawless examples exist. Others think there could be dozens still undiscovered, tucked away by accident decades ago. But the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. Some researchers claim that the minting error may have been caused by a die rotation mid-production, producing a microscopic misalignment between the obverse and reverse. Others say the coin's unusual strike depth hints at experimental press settings used only for a brief run before being corrected. Whatever the truth is, the 1981 P. Washington quarter remains one of the most enigmatic pieces of modern U.S. coinage. Dealers are constantly hunting for it, not just because of its value, but because it represents the kind of numismatic mystery that keeps the hobby alive. Every collector dreams of finding the one coin everyone else overlooked. And this one proves that dream can come true. Imagine going through your change, flipping over a 1981 quarter, and realizing the P looks strange, a little crooked, a little too bold. You tilt it under the light, and suddenly, you see that faint doubling around United States of America. Your heart starts racing. Could it be? You grab a magnifier, and there it is. The eagle's wings showing that faint shadow effect that only the rare error coins have. You take it to a dealer, your palms sweating. He examines it quietly, his eyes widening. Then he looks up and says, "Do you have any idea what you've got here?" And just like that, your life changes forever. But what makes these finds even more dramatic is how easy they are to miss. The difference between a regular 1981 P and a $1 million 1981 P can be almost invisible. You have to know where to look. The mint mark, the feather detail, the rim alignment, and even the way the light bounces off the date. Some collectors use microscopes. Others just have a trained eye and a little luck. Still, every time another one is discovered, it sends shockwaves through the collector world. Forums light up, auction houses scramble, and everyday people start looking at their quarters with new eyes. Because if a coin from 1981, a year so recent, so ordinary, can be worth over $1 million, then anything is possible. That it's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about the thrill of realizing history has been sitting in your pocket the whole time. The 1981 P quarter teaches us something deeper. That hidden treasures often look ordinary until you pay attention to SO the next time you grab a handful of change. Look closely. Don't just glance, study. Look for that faint doubling on the letters. Check the P mint mark for any tilt. Examine the eagle's wings for blending feathers. Because one tiny detail could mean the difference between 25 cents and $1.4 million. And here's the wildest part. Many people have already thrown theirs away. They had it in their hands, used it for a soda, or left it in a parking meter without realizing what they had. That's the haunting magic of this story. Some of the rarest coins in America have probably already been spent and lost forever. Collectors are still uncovering new varieties of the 1981 P every year. Some with off-center strikes, others with strange die clashes or unexpected doubling. Each new find adds another piece to the mystery and fuels the dream that another life-changing coin is still out there. If you ever needed a reason to check your change, this is it. Because the next time you spot a 1981 quarter, you might be holding history and a ticket to a fortune. So don't ignore those coins at the bottom of the drawer. Don't walk past that old jar of change in the kitchen. Somewhere among those quarters could be the rarest of them all, the 1981 P. Washington quarter, a simple piece of metal that turned ordinary lives into millionaire stories. The 1965 no mint mark Washington quarter dollar, a coin that looks ordinary, feels ordinary, but hides one of the most extraordinary secrets in U.S. coin history. Most people have no idea that 1965 quarters can be worth more than a brand new house. They drop them in vending machines, toss them in parking lots, or use them for laundry. But a few rare 1965 quarters, struck by mistake, in a way that defied the mint's own rules, are now changing lives. Here's where the story gets mysterious. The year 1965 was chaos at the U.S. Mint. Silver prices were skyrocketing. People were hoarding coins made before 1965 because they contained real silver. The government panicked. To stop the hoarding, they removed silver from dimes and quarters completely, switching to a copper-nickel blend. But a few 1965 quarters didn't get the memo. Somewhere inside the Philadelphia Mint, a handful of leftover silver planchets, the blank discs used for 1,964 quarters, got mixed into the new batch. And when the presses started striking 1965 coins, a few of those silver blanks slipped through. Collectors call them the silver survivors. And these survivors are now worth a fortune because they weren't supposed to exist. Imagine this. You're rolling up quarters from your change jar. You pick one up, it looks normal enough. Washington's profile on the front, the American eagle on the back. But it feels different, slightly heavier, maybe even shinier. You drop it on a table, and it rings with a high-pitched silver tone. That sound alone could be the sound of $1 million. One collector in California discovered his 1965 quarter in a bag of coins he bought from a flea market for just $5. When he noticed the coin looked slightly different, he sent it to be graded. The result? A 1965 quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet, verified by experts, and later sold for over $1 million at auction. But that's not even the most shocking part. Another coin, found by a retired Navy veteran in Virginia, broke every record when it sold for $1.5 million. Experts said it was one of the cleanest strikes ever seen. Perfect edges, clear detail, and the unmistakable silver luster that 1965 quarters weren't supposed to have. Dealers were stunned. Collectors were desperate to find another one. Suddenly, everyone was emptying their change drawers, testing quarters with magnets, weighing them on kitchen scales, and hoping lightning would strike twice. And here's the twist that even the mint couldn't fully explain. Some say it was a mistake, leftovers that got mixed into the new batch. Others whisper about mint workers intentionally striking a few for themselves, knowing how valuable they would be in the future. To this day, the exact number of these silver 1965 quarters remains a mystery. Some experts think fewer than 20 exist, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Prices skyrocketed. The 1965 silver quarter became a legend, a myth that turned out to be real. And as more collectors began searching, new varieties started to appear. Double strikes, off-center errors, and quarters with weak rims that hinted at minting machine misalignment. Even minor errors could bring hundreds or thousands of dollars. But the holy grail remains that 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet. Now, Here's where things get exciting. If you want to know whether your 1965 quarter is worth life-changing money, here's what to look for. First, check the edge of the coin. Most 1965 quarters show a copper-colored band around the rim. That's the copper core exposed by the nickel layer. But if the edge looks solid silver all the way through, you might be holding one of the silver planchets. Next, listen for the sound test. Drop the coin gently on a hard surface. A regular quarter makes a dull clink. A silver quarter rings with a bright, high tone that almost sings. It's unmistakable once you've heard it. Then, there's the weight. A normal 1965 copper-nickel quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. A silver one weighs closer to 6.25 grams. That tiny difference can mean the difference between pocket change and $1 million. Collectors were shocked to discover how many of these had gone unnoticed for decades. Some were hiding in coin jars, others stuck in old parking meters or pay phones, forgotten for half a century. One man in Texas found his while cleaning out his late father's coin collection. He almost spent it on a soda until he noticed the year. When he weighed it, he realized he was holding something extraordinary. That coin later sold for 6 figures. But the story doesn't end there. The 1965 no-mint Mark Washington quarter has more secrets than most collectors realize. Because 1965 was also the year the mint decided to remove mint marks altogether. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco coins all went anonymous, no identifying mark. So even though it says nothing, that missing mint mark is a clue. Every genuine 1965 quarter should have none. But when it's on a silver planchet, that's when it becomes history. And don't forget, there are also rare transitional errors where the 1965 design was accidentally struck on leftover 1964 dated dies. Those are beyond rare, and if one ever surfaced, it could shatter every auction record in the books. Imagine holding a coin that tells the story of America's economic panic, minting chaos, and one lucky mistake that slipped past history. A coin that wasn't supposed to exist, yet somehow survived, traveled through time, and might now be sitting in someone's pocket. Every collector dreams of that moment. The discovery that changes everything. And that's what keeps this legend alive. Because every time someone finds an old 1965 quarter, there's a flicker of hope. Maybe this is the one. Maybe this little piece of metal is my ticket to fortune. Dealers still whisper about the next one waiting to be found. Auction houses keep their eyes open. And collectors?